Hi, I'm Maggie. Welcome to Experiments in Crafting. Tonight I've got a couple of new yarns to show you and a Leither Co Box, one of the subscription boxes that's available out there that I subscribe to, and so I'm going to open that up. It's the November monthly box, so I'm going to open that up, and then I might do a couple of project updates. I haven't really actually done a whole lot of work on any of my crochet projects, so I don't have a whole lot to update since the last stream. But I might talk about those a little bit, and then I'll probably just answer questions, and we'll chat a little bit about crochet and yarn and whatnot. So, I guess I'll start with the yarns that I bought. So I went and met up with a friend, and we went to a yarn store that's about halfway between us. And so I picked up a couple of yarns, and I just thought I'd share those with you. This is Tosh Vintage. It's a Madeline Tosh yarn. It is a worsted weight yarn. Let's see. Tosh Vintage is 100% merino wool, worsted weight, 200 yards, 100 grams. Yeah, there's not a whole lot else on the label. It is a basically a hand wash, don't tumble dry type of deal. And this color is called Hosta Blue. So it's kind of a blue-green teal color. It's got a little bit of like a dust teal in there as well. Like there's kind of a dirty, dusty teal that's kind of cool. Like just little traces of brown kind of mixed in there. So, a handful of people saying hello. Val, Stephanie, Judy, welcome. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for anybody else watching who's not commenting. Glad to have you guys here. I know this is a weird night for us to stream on, but it just happened to work out that tonight was the best night this week. And since we canceled the stream last week, and then we were going to not stream on Thanksgiving Day, this is what made the most sense for us. Oh, Val likes that my cowl goes so well with my shirt and my hair. Yeah, I am very, very matchy today. My hair is like at a particular color stage that it matches really well, and then the shawl is like all of the colors of my hair. So I also showered and let my hair like just dry naturally, so it's got kind of a lion mane thing going on right now. But I always prefer the way that my colors look when they're set with heat, but they look pretty cool tonight, at least I think so. All right, so that is the Tosh Vintage in Hosta Blue. The other thing I picked up was 2 skeins of Manos Del Uruguay Feliz. And this one was really interesting to me because it is 70% superwash merino, 30% modal. And recently I've been more into interesting types of fiber than I have been in like crazy colors. Not that I don't still love crazy colors, but this one had just such a interesting fiber blend, and it really feels very nice. So this color is called Graphite. It is 350 yards per 100 gram skein. That makes it roughly a DK weight. It's a little, yeah, it's probably a DK weight. Let's see if it says anywhere. It does not. So, I think it's roughly a DK weight. It might even be approaching a sport weight. But I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but it has a really nice feel to it. And I'm kind of excited to work with it. It's got a really nice like sheen to it. It's probably the modal. That is so shiny. Modal is a regenerative cellulose that is in the same family as rayon, viscose, tencel. Is there one more? Things labeled bamboo are generally in that same family. They're generally rayon. So all of those are all sort of the same thing. They completely dissolve some sort of plant material. Beech trees unique to modal though, right? Yeah, modal is beech trees. Rayon is often bamboo. Viscose might also be bamboo. I don't know. There's some of them have very specific requirements in what the input material is, but generally they're sustainably like farmed, like fast growing plant material. So they're not like clear cutting forests in order to make them. They grow something that grows fast and that they can keep growing over and over again. Is the general idea there. So anyway, they're you find a lot of like t-shirts and stuff made of modal. It's usually super super soft. So this was interesting. I've got tencel yarn. I've got quite a bit of rayon, I think, in the is it Kobu? Is that the Lion brand? I think that's Kobu, which is it's supposed to be cotton and bamboo. But the bamboo I think is rayon. But anyway, this is Manos Del Uruguay Feliz. So this was this was the other thing that I got. So I got the 2 Feliz and the one of the Tosh Vintage. So this is probably destined to be a hat. I don't know what this is going to be. I've got 2 of them. I could make something relatively large. Maybe a cowl and hat set. Maybe fingerless gloves. I don't know. Just a nice, like, medium. They had a really, really, really pretty charcoal black. And I ended up not getting it because I was worried that it was just going to be miserable to work with. But it was very, very pretty with a nice sheen. Judy suggested an end-to-end shawl. I'd have to look up exactly. I think I know what she means. Like a corner to corner, maybe. But unless that means something different. But I'd have to look up a pattern. But yeah, a shawl might be a good idea with that. It's a pretty good amount of yarn. And Val's saying she didn't know they use trees except bamboo. Yeah, I think, well, modal's beech trees. I think there's one other type of wood source that they use. I'm trying to remember what tencel is made of. There are varieties of tencel that they use, like, recycled, like, material as well. But I don't know about what tencel's normally made of. I kind of thought tencel was beech trees. But it might be modal. Anyway, moving on. The other thing that I've got is another one of these Leither Co boxes. This is just a subscription that I pay for that I enjoy getting. And so I think it's fun to just open it up on here and show you what I got. So I'm going to open it up. All right. Wow. Sorry about that. This is very noisy packaging today. Okay. Whoop. Lost my... Looks like the thing came undone and then the tape got stuck to the stitch marker. Okay. So, the yarn tonight is super soft. It is 85% superwash merino, 15% Donegal nep, It's 231 yards or 100 grams, and it is listed as a DK weight. Though that is a pretty heavy DK weight. It's very much approaching worsted weight. And so it's a really soft and like sleek merino. And then the Donegal Nep is all of this, like, for lack of a better term, like lint mixed in. I don't know if we can get in a little bit closer on like the tweed there, but anyway, there's a number of yarns that use this, but this is like they just twist in like little bits and pieces to give it a tweedy look. So you can see, if I turn this around, you can see the other side. But you see all the little flecks in there, and that is that nep. So that's 100 grams of that. And then the boxes always come with a little gift or, sort of a little accessory. And so this is what looks like Mrs. Potts and Chip. And I imagine, so this is enchanted DK, and so I'm thinking that there's probably a Beauty and the Beast or princess type theme here. So there's a little stitch marker, and then there's something else in here. There is a really pretty dragonfly, like heavy duty safety pin. It's probably meant to be a shawl pin, but it's pretty robust pin here. So it's a little brass dragonfly. And then, is that everything? Okay. Very loud tissue paper. Let's see. The hook here is really pretty. This is my, it looks like I'm getting a whole set of this, like, favorite style of, handle here, which is the somewhat narrow with the little bubbles kind of shape at the end, but it's got a nice spot for my my pinky finger to sit right in there. That's where I kind of like it to be, though usually I'm choked up a little bit more on my hook. But you can see there's the hand-turned handle with the clover tip. That's the style of hook that they do. Is it's like a husband and wife team, and she dyes the yarn and he turns the handles, and then they seat a clover hook in the hand-turned handles. And so you still get the slippery clover end, but you get a very pretty hand-turned handle. This is a J hook, which I think is a 6mm. And then there's always a little pattern booklet, and I gotta be careful not to share the pattern, but I'll show you. There's usually two, there's two different types of box you can get. So you can get the wool box or the non-wool box, which is generally cotton. And then there's two different patterns, one that goes more with the cotton and one that goes more with the wool, but you get both of them. And generally there's enough yarn to do both things. So it looks like there is a beanie that goes with the wool, and a candle cozy that goes with the cotton. There's a stitch marker, which, like I said, is the Mrs. Potts and Chip stitch marker. And then there were a bunch of different shawl pins, and you got 1 out of 10 of them at random. And so I got the little dragonfly. And then it looks like the Funfetti hook, which is the colored hook. So I get the natural hook, which is wood and sort of a natural tone. There's also like a 2-tone colored hook, and that looks like it was blue and yellow to go with the blue or yellow yarns that were part of this collection. So if I flip the page, it looks like I can do this without revealing anything. There's not a very big picture on here, but you can see there's a beanie or a hat that goes with this, with that yarn. And then there is a uh, the candle cozy. So it looks like it might be intended to go around a LED candle. Um, but just wrapped around there is something sort of intriguing. So that is the collection. I do like that she does try and give a variety of like different patterns. It's not always a hat or a cowl. Sometimes there's earrings, sometimes there's a pillow cover, table runner, the candle cozy, fingerless gloves. I think there's been socks a couple of times. So there's been a lot of different things. So, I don't know. I like getting surprise stuff. I really like the hooks, especially because they have the clover tips on them. And anybody who's watched any amount of my streams would know that I'm a pretty diehard clover fan. So, Judy really likes the dragonfly. I really like the dragonfly too. It probably would go. Where'd it go? Probably put it on with my shawl. Tuck this in here. Tuck that like that. Put it on. So there. I'll wear the dragonfly. It's actually kind of awkward to put in there because the can't really choke up on the pinhead. Because the dragonfly is like mounted on the end of the pin. So, but does its job. Yeah, so that's really all I had to share this week. Like I said, I did a little bit of shopping at a local yarn store. I wanted to make like a big stream about like Black Friday deals or where I thought you could get the best deals on yarn, but I looked around and there aren't any. Joann Fabric's got some deals. I think they're running 30% off their yarn just like as part of their Black Friday thing. Nobody's doing huge Black Friday sales. As far as I could tell, they're making them as extended out and like online available as possible, which makes sense given how bad things are, social distancing and all that right now. And so you don't want to pack stores full of people. But I didn't see really anything that like super intrigued me. Michael's had nothing on sale as far as yarn goes. Hobby Lobby had their standard 30% off yarn, like it was a normal every other week type of deal. Or every 3 weeks or however often that's on sale. Joann had a few things on sale, but like nothing that was super exciting. I think they had 30% off of all yarn, which mostly just means you can't use a coupon. They kind of take like a nominal amount off, and then you can't use like the 60% off one item or anything because they're all 30% off. Where else did I look? I looked at a couple other places. Nobody had anything that was super exciting. If you were looking to spend some money on yarn around Black Friday, or you had presents to buy for other yarn people, I would honestly be looking at some local yarn stores on Saturday. So Black Friday is Friday after Thanksgiving, but Small Business Saturday is the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And sometimes those deals don't feel as amazing, but a lot of small yarn stores will run like, 20% off of a couple of different brands of yarn. But honestly, they probably could use the business more at this point. I imagine that Joann Fabric has seen a year like no other with the amount of fabric that's been sold. But some of those small yarn stores could probably really use the extra business. So I would say if you're looking for yarn presents, I would go local this year. So I've been doing my best to shop a little bit here and there with local yarn stores. With as much as I've been working, though, I have had a kind of a heck of a time getting into a store. That's actually true of both Joann Fabric and the yarn store, though. Obviously Joann Fabric's open later most nights. Let's see. Elizabeth says she's glad she caught a live stream. I love the way a yarn feels. What is the softest cotton that I've found to make a light cotton baby blanket? Not super expensive. What's your overall favorite soft to the touch ice yarn? Okay. Let's see. Softest cotton yarn that I found to make a light cotton baby blanket. Off the top of my head, well, okay, so I'm gonna say a couple of things. 100% cotton baby blanket is going to be heavy. Pretty much no matter how lightweight of a how lightweight of a yarn you start with. So if you start with cotton thread, it's still going to end up pretty heavy. So you're going to have, if you want it to be on the lighter side, you're probably going to have to make a relatively open, lacy blanket. As far as what I would recommend, the Lion brand Kobu is super, super soft. It's a cotton bamboo, which is rayon. But that might be a good option. It comes in relatively small balls, so it might get a little bit more expensive, but I think they're like $4-ish a piece. And they're usually available at most of the big yarn stores. I know for sure that Walmart carries it. And I've seen it at Joann Fabric. As far as 100% cotton, the Lion brand Pima that just came out not too long ago was very nice. It's a worsted weight cotton. It's not going to be super light. Most of the other cottons are all dish cotton. I'm trying to think of what else I've seen recently that was cotton that was not super heavyweight. Is this soft cotton? This might actually be a really good option. So this is Yarn Bee's Cotton DK. This is 100% cotton. It's this wrapped kind of squiggly yarn. It's not heavily spun, but then there's like a thread wrapped around it. I would bet that the thread wrapped around it is not cotton, but it's low enough weight that they're counting it as 100% cotton. Though I suppose it could be a cotton thread wrapped around there. It just seems unlikely. Actually, I think we picked this yarn apart, didn't we? And it was definitely not. This is the one that I lit on fire and it melted. So this might actually be a really good option because it is relatively lightweight. But cotton is just, it's going to be heavier than the like equivalent plastic. So this DK weight and a DK weight acrylic, the acrylic is going to be lighter for the same amount of stitches. That's just true of the fibers. So this one actually has it's very soft and feels very nice. I was actually going to weave this. Yep. If cotton makes a heavy fabric, what would you recommend to make a light baby blanket? I mean, I still like cotton for baby blankets. It's just going to be relatively difficult to make it lightweight. It does breathe a little bit better, so even if it is kind of on the heavy side, it's still not like overwhelmingly warm. Um, yeah, generally I just use acrylic. I usually pick, what do I like? Premier, everyday, like DK weight. I prefer baby blankets in DK weight, and I prefer them to be semi-solid. Um, so if I can get them relatively solid, I do. But I like DK weight because the blanket ends up being pretty thin. So it can be a little heavier, but it still feels like a lightweight fabric because it still like flows and moves. Let me grab this baby blanket. This is the Premier. What was this called? Something colors. DK colors. I think it's Premier DK colors. Let me move these guys out of the way. Everybody. So this is a pretty solid stitch. This is an interlocking shell stitch, for which I do have a tutorial. But the blanket itself is very, very flat. And so it feels very lightweight. It flows and moves very nicely. But it's not it's not super, super lacy. I try to avoid super lacy baby blankets just because they always seem like they're going to like tangle up there or like break there. They generally don't, but that's just in my head. That's what it seems like. So I kind of like these more dense stitch patterns. This one and what was the other one called? The Granny Spike. That I also have a tutorial for. So are both really nice interlocking stitches. But yeah, I would go with a DK weight acrylic. Though I think you could probably do a DK weight cotton as well. But it is going to be a lot heavier and it is going to take a while longer to dry. Val's asking what are my favorite colors and weights to work with. In general, my favorite weight to work with is 100-gram fingering weight skeins of yarn. And as far as color, I mean, I like purples and aquas and blues, but I will work with most colors. I'm trying to think if there's a color I like actively avoid. I don't do a ton of dark greens. I tend to avoid black just because the stitches are kind of miserable to make. You have to really get an excessive amount of light going in order to work with black yarn. What else? If I'm not working with fingering weight yarn, I probably switch to DK most often. That's kind of my like heaviest common yarn. A lot of amigurumi I'll make out of DK weight. Worsted weight feels just chunky to me, and then getting into the heavy yarns, unless I'm making something somewhat ridiculously heavy, I don't really ever work in the 5s and 6s sizes of yarn weight. So something like a bear hood with the little ears or something is about the only thing I make in yarns that heavy. But yeah, I generally stay on the really fine weight side of things. And I don't have anything against sport weight yarns. They're just not super common. So I usually go fingering and then DK. There just aren't a whole lot of options in sport weight yarns in most stores. What Elizabeth was saying in the first comment is she loves the way I describe how a yarn feels. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad that that's helpful. I know a lot of people don't like to buy online without feeling a yarn, and sometimes that's not really an option. So if I can describe it a little bit better, kind of makes people a little bit easy or more at ease. Um, let's see. Stephanie's saying that the black is so difficult. Yeah, it definitely is. Um, there's a lot of like memes online that you'll see, like, making you something out of a yarn, making it like a pricing chart, and like all the way at the bottom is making you something out of black yarn, and it's usually like, you know, the price next to it is you can't pay me enough or something like that. So, um, let's see. Um, Stephanie's saying that the light up hooks work for her for black yarn. I'm trying to think. I really don't know that I've worked with the light up hooks with black yarn because I just don't work in black yarn almost ever. Occasionally for accent like pieces on an amigurumi or something like that, but even the dragon that I'm working on was like, even in this dark purple green, it was dark enough in like a not very well lit room that it was rough to see the stitches in some of the spots. So, um yeah. Let's see. Val said the Leither seems all lightweights. I think it's a reasonable variety, but I think what she's doing is, so if you picture the set of 10 hooks that come in the clover, they go B through J, which I think is a 2.25 millimeter to a 6 millimeter. Um, and so I think what happens is that most of the yarns have to be as only as high as like a worsted weight, or you could probably get away with something kind of lacy and a DK weight with a 6 millimeter hook. But if you want to get into bulky yarns, you need to go into the plastic hooks in the clover sizes. So to get up into a 7, 8, 9, 10 millimeter hook, you could go with a super chunky yarn, but she hasn't done any of those. So I think she's just using the metal hooks, and it's just those uh the the bottom 10 sizes. So, or the middle 10, cuz she doesn't do the steel hooks either. So I think that's probably why they all seem lightweight, but in order to use a B, C, D, E, F, G hook, you're probably only in a fingering or sport weight yarn. And then H and I, you could do a DK, maybe a light worsted, and then J, and you're to worsted yarn, and that's it. Like, that's as heavy as you can go. So, today's was a J hook and a roughly a DK weight yarn. So, um, yeah, I think it's not so much that she's targeting low weight yarns. It's just that the hooks are driving towards low weight yarns. Val loves the dragon. He really is getting cuter. I have literally not changed anything. I just keep pulling him out, and he really needs his wings put on and his accent pieces. I just haven't been working on that right now. I probably need to go back to the yarn store and get another ball of this color. Um, I've tried a couple of different things with the wings, and I think I would be happier if they matched. Um, I've got the panel set up in purple, but I need to put accent color on, and I think I'd rather the accent color match. I'm gonna try it with the solid green that I've got, so it'll be solid purple with solid green accent, to go on the green and purple, and sort of, I guess there's some blue in here. It's really very purple, like it's more purple green, which is kind of blue, but I don't know. It's a weird color in there. So yeah, you can see there's kind of some of these like patches here on the leg there's this color here that's sort of teal and sort of green and sort of purple. I don't know. It's a weird color, but um anyway, it's a variegated yarn, and I've got solids that I can uh use for the wings. So let's see. Some more conversation. Let's see. Um, let's. I've only chosen. Okay, so Elizabeth said she's only chosen yarn once and felt every yarn in the store at least 4 times. Haven't been in a building that isn't my house since March, so that isn't an option right now. Yeah. So it is relatively like a whole bunch of people are not going out, and so you're kind of limited uh to what's available online, and then you can't really go out and you can't touch everything and feel it. Most of the stores right now have, well, I shouldn't say have better return policies. They've extended return policies. So if you did order something and you ended up hating it, that you could return it in like January when they'll let you return things again. Right now, I don't think you can return anything to Walmart. Like just returns are stopped, and they are just extending their return policy like to infinity. Um, but I don't really know what, like, if you wanted a different thing, like what you're supposed to do about it. I guess just buy it a second time. Like if you bought the wrong size in something, you can't like take it and exchange it. Um, but I think a bunch of the bigger department stores are just putting returns in quarantine for like 5 days or something before they put them back out on the sales floor. And then they're at least the Macy's and Nordstroms that I shopped at this summer were steaming in between. Oh, it looks like Stephanie said, oh, her Walmart started taking returns a couple of months ago. The one that I was in the other day definitely was not taking returns, but things in Illinois have been pretty rough. So it might be like she just said, it might be regional. But yeah. So I'm trying to think if there was anything else. I need to scrounge up some more project bags. I don't know where all my project bags are at, but they're not in my basket, and things keep getting tangled up into kind of a mess. I am working on a doll. I think I showed this last time. I might have gotten further. So this is legs and socks and partway up the torso on this doll. And then these get twisted together and they'll form the support for her head and shoulders. And then they get cut off. And so, yeah, this is the starting of another doll that I'm working on. I don't have the one that I've been working on with the anime eyes done yet, but all of the parts are sewn. I just need to finish off the eyes. And then this one, I'm not sure about this doll yet. I think the proportions are off a little bit. Her legs seem excessively long, and I don't think she's got that much torso. Like, maybe this much more? And then head, maybe it'll be fine. I'm a little worried that it's not going to be fine. But there's one arm. I made the arms thicker than the pattern called for. Pattern only called for 4 stitches around, and this is 6 stitches, and they're pretty tiny. Like, they're not a whole lot larger than a pipe cleaner. So 4 stitches would have been quite a bit thinner. And that felt unnecessarily thin compared to how thick the legs are. So I made them a little bit bigger. I need to make a second arm, and then once I get up a little bit higher, then the arms get worked into the shoulders. So yeah, that's the doll I'm working on. This one's name is Elin, Elin, from Carla, like Viglucci, something like that, something with a V. But yeah, the name of the doll is Elin. I really like this pattern designer because she comes up with like the cutest little clothes, and so the doll has like a whole wardrobe. So I'm pretty excited to work on that. This doll also has crocheted hair instead of yarn hair, which is something I wanted to try out a second time. The last doll that I made with crochet hair was the mermaid. So I'm excited to see how this turns out. Excuse me. But yeah, so I've got that. The dragon wing that I've been working on. Like I said, it's just, right now it's just the, has this been cut free? Yeah, it has been. So it's just the wing panel right now. And then where these two stitch markers are at, hold on, we'll switch cameras so you can see where I'm pointing. So this is just the wing panel here. And then where these two stitch markers are at, it gets like ribs here. And then all the way down here that are done in the green. And, not that one. It's up here. I've got this green, which looks awful bright, but really went like well with the color here. It might not be super clear, but the tone was right. All of the other greens that I had were too something else. I don't know what shade, but this was the right. It's not the same brightness, but it was the right color. So I don't know how it's gonna look on top of this yarn. That's my big worry. If it looks terrible, I will probably go get another ball of the yarn that this dragon's body is done in. But yeah, so the wing goes on, I think roughly like this. And then I think part of this rolls over into, I don't know what's happening here. Anyway, there's the wing, is roughly this large. And then gets a whole backbone that holds it up. So I still have to crochet that on, but the whole thing gets rolled over around a paper wrapped wire like structure. So this will get sewn on like this, and then that whole thing will get driven into this dragon's back and sewn in, and then it'll hold up like this, and it's gonna be awesome. I'm pretty excited for when this dragon is done. It's gonna be a pretty cool gift. So anyway, it's a little bit unfortunate because the kid that this dragon is for, I was actually shopping this weekend, and I saw some really cool stuffed animals that she would have liked, and I passed on getting them because I was like, she's getting the dragon. I've already put a ton of time into it. But there was a really, possibly the most gaudy stuffed animal I've ever seen. It was hilarious. It was a deer wearing a big fur coat. And it was only like this tall. But it was just, I don't know, kind of, I almost bought it. It was stupid expensive. It was some, like, must be popular and fancy brand of stuffed animal called Jellycat. But if you look it up, it's Jellycat Viola was the name of the reindeer. And it is like a reindeer wearing like a purple coat. That's like a big fur coat and like glittery antlers. I don't know. I thought it was hilarious. So I almost bought that, but it would have also been for the same kid. And so she has a twin sister, and I don't have any stuffed animals for her. She's not nearly as into them as the other. So, but the dragon is probably good enough for stuffed animals. They're getting a little old for stuffed animals anyway. Well, I shouldn't say that. I still buy myself quite a lot of stuffed animals. So yeah, that's my dragon. What else am I working on? Still working on that fingerless glove. Still working on the cowl. I've made no progress on either of them. That's really all I've been working on. I did a lot of mask sewing last weekend. Not this most previous weekend, but the weekend before. I had cut a whole lot of masks, and I didn't sew almost any of them. So it was easy, based on the way I was cutting my fabric, it was really easy to cut 3 masks at a time, but I only wanted like one of each pattern, and so I just cut them and like stacked them up in a pile because there wasn't really anything to do with the other parts, like the other offcuts. So I just went ahead and cut the 3. Basically I was taking a 9-inch strip of fabric, like edge to edge, and folding it in half. And then I'd cut 3 masks would fit across, like edge to edge. And then I'd take the one that I wanted and just throw the other 2 in a pile. And so I sewed through a lot of my pile just for the heck of it. And I kind of got like an assembly line of sorts down. They're all 2-layer with the option of adding a 3rd layer in there. And so I laid a bunch of them. So the inside needs to be folded in. And so I got that part done on all of them. And then I sewed, let's see, which parts did I get to? I sewed the whole thing together into the dual layer mask. So I sewed each piece, and then I sewed them together. I turned them right side out. And then the last part is to sew the like tabs that hold the, do I have a mask? Yeah, here. So the last part is to sew this part down and then run the elastic through the little loop here. And so this is the style of mask that I like. But, and then on some of them, I will probably go in and sew in a noseband as well. I don't like them on all of them, because the noseband starts to like dig into the bridge of my nose. And so I really only need a noseband if I'm wearing like regular safety glasses at work. Even my anti-fog ones, I don't need a noseband. And so I won't have one, and I'll just, it's less irritating on the bridge of my nose all day. So I did a lot of that last week, and so it really meant that I didn't crochet a whole lot instead. So I'm hoping I have a 4-day weekend, and so I'm hoping that some of that weekend I get to sit around and crochet and not do much of anything else. Though I don't know. I don't know what you guys are planning on doing for Thanksgiving or after Thanksgiving. I know most people aren't doing much in the way of travel or big family dinners this year, but I think we're staying home on Thanksgiving Day and cooking duck. I've never made duck before, but I'm going to give it a try. So it sounded like something different to do. And then I'm making turkey on Sunday. So, let's see. Stephanie's asking, do I experience crochet burnout? How do I deal with it? I do. And usually it's, well, number one, I find it's worst when I have to do something for pay. The more that I feel obligated to do a crochet project, the less I want to do it. And then I would say the way I get over it is to find something that I absolutely don't have to do, and that is usually pretty challenging. So whether that's an amigurumi, whether it's detailed thread work, I usually will find something pretty technically challenging. And that's usually what gets me out of kind of a rut. There's pretty much nothing I hate more than like an entire blanket of single crochet. So I find something that is the furthest from that possible. And generally that ends up being like thread color work. Like I said, amigurumi are a good option. Um, Thread doilies, a lot of times I'll switch to and do those. Um, Really intricate lace type projects I will switch to. But something that really, like, I find that the burnout for me comes when it is repetitive and I just did a huge, like you said, you just finished a shawl. The shawl probably was the same stitch over and over again, or enough of a similar stitch that you just don't want to do any of that anymore. Um, but yeah, otherwise, it's fine to just not crochet for a little bit too. I will kind of go back and forth. If I'm a little bit sick of crocheting, I'll switch to sewing for a little bit. Or more often, I will just switch to browsing Ravelry until I find the project that makes me want to crochet again. So I will just start looking around until I find something that draws my attention enough that I'm like, ooh, I have to make that right now. And then go and find the yarn and start working on that. Because once you find that project, and it does not have to be like, I know some people organize their Ravelry and like, this is the next thing I want to work on, and they put it in a queue and it's like the top of their list. I do not do that. I just will search patterns until something speaks to me. And there are probably 500 projects that I'd like to do. But the one that I'm going to do right this second is the one that caught my eye 10 minutes ago. And maybe that's just how I am, but that's usually what gets me out of my rut. So I find that yarn very rarely gets me out of a rut. So like buying yarn or like having beautiful yarn, very, very rarely will I buy a yarn and then seek out a project to use it with. I usually have a project and then will either buy yarn for it or find the right yarn in my stash. But I find that just buying yarn rarely leads me to making a project. It's almost always the other way around. Vel does it exactly the opposite. She buys gorgeous yarn and then starts a totally new project, which, if that is what works for you, that's also a great possibility. Like, that might work just fine for others. But yeah, that's, I guess, don't get me wrong, I love just buying gorgeous yarn. It just rarely drives me to seek out a project. I think the one exception to that was the Twisted Fiber Arts. I bought a ball of their yarn that was like a dark blue to teal and sparkly, and I had to seek out a pattern to work with that. And really, really went after a pattern for that yarn. Something that would look nice in a gradient. So. Sorry. Let's see. Belle's hoping to enjoy food and yarn. I think that's probably most people's goals, though that might be my goal most of the time. But yeah, that I think is my goal for this weekend too, is a lot of cooking and hopefully a lot of not cooking and just crocheting. Yeah. Judy's working on a lap blanket with puzzle yarn. Puzzle, I think, is a premier yarn. I've got a little bit of puzzle somewhere that I have not worked with. It's actually very similar to this dragon, but it's got some red in it. It's like dark purple and green and red. Let's see. Stephanie thanking us for the suggestions on getting out of a rut. And Judy really wants to make a corner to corner shawl for herself. I would highly recommend you can do a solid corner to corner shawl, but I would take a look at Moogly Blog's Fortune Shawlette. I've made possibly 100 of them. No, I've made probably a solid like 10, I think, of that particular shawl. It is not the one I'm wearing. I did make one out of this exact yarn, and then I loaned it to my mom, and she kept it. And then I asked for it back, and she said she didn't think she had that shawl. And then I finally got more of this yarn. I ordered it from somebody selling it on Ravelry because it was a discontinued color. And I was just at her house 3-4 weeks ago, and she found the shawl. So it's good that it's still around, and I told her to keep it because I had replaced it. And this one actually much larger, but it was that pattern. So I did 200 grams of yarn with this shawl instead of the 100 that the original one was made out of. But it was kind of funny because she was pretty insistent that she did not have the yarn, and she did, or didn't have the shawl, and she did. But it had gotten put away in a closet and made its way to the way, way back of the closet. Lacey's saying she enjoys the live streams. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you for joining us tonight. And she's making a super bulky throw blanket out of London K yarns in tons of super bright colors. I'm not familiar with that brand of yarn, but it sounds like a really cool project. I've never made a well, I shouldn't say never. One of the very first projects I made was a throw out of Burnout blanket yarn. And it is somewhat of a disaster. I lost a bunch of stitches along the way, and so the blanket is like somewhat trapezoid shaped. It's not good. But I really ought to pull the whole thing out and remake it, or just remake it for my dad completely. But it was a present for him, and it's sitting over in the corner. I can actually see it because I took it back and was like, I'm gonna finish that, and then I did not because it was such a mess. I've got the London K website up in front of me. There's a lot going on. Though I don't see... Oh, there's some yarn. I was going to say, it's a lot of accessories and project kits. But, yeah, so it looks like interesting stuff. It looks like kind of a little bit of a kooky brand, but it looks like it's kind of fun. And, yeah, it does look like a pretty heavy yarn. So, yeah, a bulky yarn. Not necessarily heavy, but it looks like fun stuff. I've never heard of the brand, so I'll have to take a look around and see if there's anything interesting. I see. Yeah, she does a lot of yarn bombing. Yeah, it looked like a lot of like art and crochet hooks and like little kits and stuff. So it looks like cool stuff. Let's see. Wanda says, for the geometric shawl for Twisted Fiber Arts, remember how many yards or meters I used for the pattern? Ravelry does not specify. I used the whole ball of the Twisted Fiber Arts. I don't think I have a ball of that handy. Ravelry might have the yards and meters for a ball of Twisted Fiber Arts Glamour, I think was the yarn base. Though I think they came in small, medium, and large balls, so it might not specify how many yards. I'd have to go digging in. Yeah. that sounds right. So it sounds like the the glamour self-striping yarn was 360 yards based on Ravelry, and that sounds right. It was pretty. It was a fingering weight yarn, and 360 yards is pretty shy of a uh, what do I want to say? 360 yards is probably closer to a sport weight yarn than it is to a fingering weight yarn. And I think that was my experience working that up. Was it was a little heavy and didn't have all that much yarn. Like felt a little like I would have liked to make the shawl a little bit bigger. So I would say for that, if you have Twisted Fiber Arts yarn, certainly use it because the shawl turned out nicely. But I would err on the side of slightly larger, and go, if you can, go 400, 450 yards, and get a little bit nicer size. Even going out to like 600 yards might even make for a nicer size. That shawl wasn't too bad to work up. I think that was a relatively straightforward pattern. I'm trying to think. The one that I did, it's a wrap rainbow. That shawl was difficult. I don't know. I don't think I have that one down here. That was one of the 10 hours or less patterns. It was super fun to work up, but you really had to pay attention. I messed that shawl up a lot and had to pull it out a bunch. Judy said she made a king size Afghan for a wedding and it came out beautiful. That is a huge wedding present. Like, not like very, very valuable and like a huge commitment on your time. A king size Afghan is. I can't even wrap my head around making something that large. I just don't have quite the attention span for that. I've tried several times to make blankets and they never end up being blankets. I've made a lot of baby blankets and that's about it. Anything larger than a baby blanket and I have not been able to commit to it. It's just too much of the same thing. And I really don't like blankets that are all kinds of chaos. Because I've seen some where it's like, well, you could change stitches every 4 rows and make a sort of a sampler, and that doesn't appeal to me. I don't mind the different stitches in squares, and so that's what I've tried to do that before. But yeah, that's a huge commitment and one that I have not been able to do so far. I would say giant projects are definitely my weakness. I have not made like a big sweater or blanket, really any gigantic projects. My specialty, I guess, or my favorite things to do are intricate or lacy, sort of delicate projects. I like thread work. I like doing 100-gram fingering weight shawls. I like amigurumi. But I don't like giant things of the same stitch that doesn't, I just don't complete them. I start them and then I just don't get them done. So even like a 200-gram fingering weight shawl that's mostly double crochets, I usually quit about 75 grams in. So there's a lot of bags on the wall that you guys can't see that are just hanging there full of projects that I've started and haven't finished because I kind of lost interest quickly. So I definitely applaud you for being able to finish a king-size Afghan. Let's see. Lacey said she's gonna make a skirt out of a chunky 5 that she's looking at. That could turn out pretty cool. So it'd probably look really cute with like some tights. because crochet is basically, knots, and you got to end up with a lot of holes, but like kind of a chunky skirt over some like contrasting tights could be really cute, or leggings. I saw a lot of people were wearing crochet skirts over leggings just to have like a layer of extra warmth around like your upper legs and butt and stuff, like just were nicer to, you know what I mean? Like if you sit down in the car and like on a cold seat, just less uncomfortable if you've got like a couple extra inches of like warmth. So I saw that those were relatively popular with people who just wanted to wear leggings but needed a little extra warmth. So let's see. Judy's saying she wants to start doing smaller things, and Lacey says that that's what she was picturing too, little leggings with the skirt. So yeah, I think that would be super cute. And yeah, depending on how heavy or how warm it turns out, it could be cute for winter, or if you worked up something kind of a little bit thinner, could be cute in the like spring, early summer too. I think probably would be too heavy for like summer by itself, but maybe not. So, but yeah, so sounds like a lot of good projects that everybody's working on, and things that people have planned for the Thanksgiving weekend. I'm hoping to get some of these projects off my list, and then I'd really like to rewarp my loom. I think I'm just going to go ahead and cut the project that's on there off. I kind of hate it. The yarn is too springy. It doesn't like I can just keep putting it under tension, and it seems still like it keeps stretching. And then the pattern that I laid out for myself has too many color changes for not enough yarn. So some of them are like single strand color changes. And what's happening is where I'm tucking my ends into the loom, I'm getting like bulk at the edges, and it's really not turning out very nice, and I'm not super happy with it, and I just want to be done with it. So I think I'm just going to cut it off and throw it away, because I definitely not going to pick it back apart, and I think I'm just over it. So I think I could reach my loom here and show you what I mean on the edges. So on here, so what I did was laid out a pattern that was 3 pink, 3 green, 3 gray, and then 1 pink, 1 green. What did I do here? 2 gray, 1 green, 1 pink. Yeah, so this is a mirrored set here. So pink, green, gray, gray, green, pink. So if you go from here, it's pink, green, gray, green, pink. And then gray, green, pink, and then pink, green, gray. So it's mirroring back and forth. But the problem is that in order to get the plaid, you have to do the same thing in the weft direction. So this is warp and this is weft. But the problem comes in when you have this pink, green, 2 gray, green, pink. You end up with sections where you have to just put one stripe of one stripe of pink, one stripe of green, 2 stripes of gray, 1 stripe of green, 1 stripe of pink. And what ends up happening is that the ends are getting too like pudgy down here because I'm tucking all of my weaving ends in. And so I'm not thrilled with it, and I'm only this far. And like I said, this yarn is super springy. And like no matter how much tension I put this warp under, like it's still super springy. So I think it's just not a great match for the project. I was aiming to just make a table runner, and if I hate it this much and have avoided weaving as much as I have because I just didn't really want to get back into this project, I'm pretty sure that I should just do something else. So I'm going to cut it off and warp it with something else and see how that goes. So my intent is to warp it with this cotton DK in both gray and white and make some gray and white. Maybe hand towels, maybe table runner. I'm not really sure what I want to do with it. Yeah, Lacey's saying that it is really pretty. It is. It's not turning out great. And like I said, it's taking up my loom, and I've avoided weaving. I might take it off the loom carefully and be able to put it back away, but I think in order to do that, I have to give up my heddle and store it with the project, and I don't think I want to do that. So I might be able to cut it off and store it without the heddle, but then if I want to redo it, then I have to re-warp it through here. So we'll see. I haven't decided totally. Maybe I'll just suck it up and finish it too and just be done with it. And like I said, I'm not totally sure what I want to do, but I kind of don't want to keep working on it. But I am going to release some tension off of here because I cranked it way down. So anyway, that's my project on there. Elizabeth's hoping to finally finalize her online yarn orders. Judy said she started a loom project and never finished. I started and finished one scarf. I've never wet blocked it or done anything with it. It could use a little bit of help and a little bit of softening. It's a little burlappy. I chose a blue-faced Leicester yarn, and it's not super soft, and I knew it wasn't going to be, but I was hoping that it would look really nice, and mostly it looks like burlap. So I'm hoping that after it blocks that it kind of shrinks into itself and looks a little bit more solid and a little bit less like burlap. Elizabeth asked what it's going to be. My intent was to make it a table runner. But again, I think I'm going to cut it off and just be done with it. It was cool. It was a lot of work to warp, but I think I just want my loom back. We'll see. Like I said, I might just power through it and get it over with. The edges are going to look terrible. That's really what was bothering me, is they're all lumpy and weird, because in order to tuck in the ends, I had to fold them over, and so if you just put one line in, then you have two ends, and so it's 3 thick at the edges and only 1 thick through the center, and so it was quickly making the edges taller than the center, and I wasn't loving it. And it's kind of a heavy yarn. I might just need to beat it less so that it's a little bit more open, and then that wouldn't make as big of a difference. But really what I needed to do was less color changes and bigger chunks, I think. So if I had done bigger chunks with less color changes, then the edges hide a lot easier. So in the pink sections here that I'm working on, the color changes were no big deal. But in the short sections, they make a big fuss on the edges. So anyway, Judy says it's pretty and time consuming. Yeah, that's That's pretty much all I know about weaving so far. Is it is pretty and time consuming. I'm in a couple of like Facebook groups where people are working on stuff, and it feels. I feel the way that I know people feel about the rate that I generally crochet at, which is it feels impossibly fast how fast they get through projects, and like crazy intricate, just beautiful patterns. One lady recently posted that she'd reupholstered all of her chairs. It was the coolest project I've ever seen, on one of these weaving websites. It was just like she had done each chair with the same yarn but did a different pattern on each one, and the effect was so cool. They were really old, kind of ornate wooden chairs from like the early 1900s, and they were really awesome, reupholstered with this hand woven fabric. Wanda's asking why the yarn's so springy. I'm trying to remember what yarn this is. It's a Hobby Lobby yarn, but I don't remember what it's called. But it was very springy to begin with. I have a feeling it was nylon. It doesn't feel like nylon, but I have a feeling it has nylon in it if it's not mostly nylon. But yeah, I think it's just the yarn is very elasticy. And it's got a lot of squish to it, and I was hoping that it would make like a cool table runner, and I think all I'm making is a springy mess. So I think it was just a poor choice in yarn. And so I honestly think I probably ought to just cut it off and do something new. So, well, I can feel myself getting rather tired, and so I think I'm going to wrap things up for the night and wish all of you a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you all for watching tonight and chatting with me. If you have questions or ever want to know when we're streaming, since things have been a little bit, we've been shifting things around. We're not always streaming on Thursday nights. The goal is to stream on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Central Time, or thereabouts. But sometimes we have to cancel. Sometimes we have to reschedule to a Monday night like tonight. And so if you're ever wondering, I will post on Facebook and Instagram and on the YouTube community tab. And you can find me on Facebook or Instagram at Experiments in Crafting. And so there'll always be the post there. You can also like send me a direct message if you've got questions, or you have an idea for a live stream or something like that. You want to share a project with me. I'm always super happy to see all of those. So, anyway, you can find me there, and otherwise have a great rest of your week and have a great Thanksgiving. Bye.